Some names fade from history, but these names should never be forgotten. They stood for justice. They fought for freedom. And like Jesus, they gave their lives for the cause. From Medgar Evers to Fred Hampton, from Amilcar Cabral to Malcolm X. These are not just names in dusty history books or fading headlines. These are legacies. Each one a life taken too soon, but never in vain. Today, we honor them. Let's dive in. Medgar Evers? On June 12, 1963, civil rights leader Medgar Evers was tragically targeted in his driveway in Jackson, Mississippi. The attack was carried out by a white supremacist, Byron de la Beckwith, in response to Evers' powerful efforts to desegregate the University of Mississippi and championed black voter registration. Malcolm X? On February 21, 1965, Malcolm X, a fearless human rights advocate, was addressing an audience at the Audubon Ballroom in New York City when a tragic act of violence took his life. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? On April 4, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a champion for civil rights and justice, was tragically targeted while standing on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. James Earl Ray, a fugitive with a history of racism, was identified as the perpetrator. Dr. King was in Memphis to support striking sanitation workers in his continued fight for racial and economic justice. Viola Liuzzo? On March 25, 1965, Viola Liuzzo was driving participants back from the Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights March in Alabama when members of the Ku Klux Klan followed her car and took her life in a senseless act of violence. Her dedication as a volunteer for justice and equality made her a target of violence. James Chaney? On June 21, 1964, James Chaney, a young black activist working with CORE, was abducted in Philadelphia, Mississippi, along with Andrew Goodman and Michael Schwerner. After being severely beaten, their lives were tragically taken by members of the Ku Klux Klan for their efforts to register black voters. Fred Hampton? On December 4, 1969, Fred Hampton, the charismatic chairman of the Illinois Black Panther Party, was struck in an incident during a pre-dawn raid by Chicago police. Under directives from CONTELPRO, the police stormed his apartment while he slept. Hampton's leadership in empowering black communities was seen as a threat by law enforcement. Mark Clark? On December 4, 1969, Mark Clark was struck during the same Chicago police raid that ended Fred Hampton's life. Clark, who was on security duty, was one of the first to be targeted. His work in supporting community survival programs was critical to the Black Panther Party's mission. Reverend George Lee? On May 7, 1955, Reverend George Lee, an early voting rights advocate, was tragically targeted while driving home in Belzoni, Mississippi. Reverend Lee had used his pulpit and printing press to encourage black voter registration in the face of violent opposition. Herbert Lee? Herbert Lee lost his life on September 25, 1961, in Liberty, Mississippi. He had been working closely with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to register black voters. Lee was struck in a pow-pow event in broad daylight by a white legislator, E. H. Hurst, who faced no legal consequences. Harry T.
That's a wrap, History Seekers. Catch the full story on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Peace and love.